Okay, looks like I am live. Hi there, I'm Dan Weedin. This is another edition of Weedin Unleashed. Today is June 23rd, 2014, and glad to be spending another Monday with you. For those of you that are on live or will come on live, thank you for joining us. For those of you who are watching later on my YouTube channel, I want to thank you as well. One of the beauties of this is that you can either catch me live or you have an opportunity to interact with me and talk a little bit about the topics that we're going to discuss. Or if you can't make it live, you can at least watch. So we're going to go for as long as we can here, up to 30 minutes. We'll see how many people come on board and have any questions. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about my extra points, what's on my mind today, and we'll go from there. First off, I do want to let you know that next Monday I will not have a Weedin Unleashed. I will be unleashed driving cross country with my oldest daughter, coming back, bringing her back home after many years on the East Coast, and she and I are going to be driving. And so on Monday of next week, I'm probably going to be somewhere either in Minnesota, North Dakota, maybe even Montana. I don't know where I'll be at this time, but it won't be doing a live Unleashed. You're gonna have to wait for 2 more weeks from today, and I'll be back and at it again. But I do encourage you to follow my blog at Weedin360.com. You can also follow my Twitter at Dan Weedin, DanWeedin. I'll be letting everybody know what I'm doing driving cross country for the first time in my life. So it'll be a lot of fun. So anyway, no Weedin Unleashed broadcast next week. I'll be back the week after. So today, the extra points, for those of you who get it, was about my marriage and about parenthood and about communications. You see, this past weekend, my wife Barb and I celebrated 28 years of marriage. It's kind of cool. We were married on a Saturday, the 21st. This year was on a Saturday. And it was the exact same type of day. Beautiful, beautiful blue skies, no clouds, nice weather. Everything was perfect. And so for 28 years we've been married, and we've been fortunate to raise 2 remarkable young ladies. And I was just thinking about, about doing that and comparing it a little bit to running a business. Whenever you have kids, if you've had kids that have gone through the teenage years, you know that as a parenting group, as the management, so to speak, you can be challenged at times. Sometimes you send out mixed messages. Sometimes it's because the kids, or in maybe your case, the employees, have found a way to help do that for you. And then other times you do it to yourself. And so the important thing about raising kids is that the message is the same. That the communication style might be a little bit different, but that the message, the culture, it's the same. That goes for discipline, that goes for promoting people, that goes for the types of folks you hire, that just goes for the overall communication. The message has to be the same. When you do that in raising kids, more often than not, the results are very good. When you do that in raising employees, more often than not, it's very good. The problem that I see on occasion is that the message often gets mixed. And it gets mixed at the highest level and sometimes in that mid-management section. Let me explain. If you've got a situation where you have a group of employees who you have influence over, you're their manager, you're their boss, you're the owner, you're at a mid-management level and they're your direct report, doesn't matter. If you have influence over those people, your message is important. The problem comes up is when you might have a colleague, a counterpart, a peer that is giving a different message. So if you are a partnership and you have 2 people who are 50-50 owners and you have employees out there and one person is giving a message as far as, let's say, this is what we're trying to accomplish with your position, you're in charge of this and you'll do all of this, that's great. Until the other person comes along and says, no, I want you to be doing this instead. Now, I used a lot of this because I couldn't come up with a lot of different examples on the spur of the moment. We are, after all, on live television, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to get to. When you have a situation and a management team, and that management team might be the CEO, it might be a supervisory level, some sort of management. When you have an executive management team, and the message to individual employees or groups of employees doesn't coincide, you're going to have some big problems. The big problems have a lot of downside. The results are bad. You're talking about poor employee morale. You're talking about bad production. I mean, if people think they're supposed to be doing one thing, are led to believe that, and they're supposed to be doing something else, or the messages are mixed, you're talking about poor productivity. You're talking about loss of revenue when that happens. You're also talking about increased conflict. You're talking about higher drama. You're talking about a lot of different issues, and the worst of it is you're probably going to have a high turnover rate. So whenever you have a situation where communications are mixed, they're not consistent, you're going to get highly inconsistent results, and you're going to have people who are angry. I know we've had some people out here. This is your opportunity at some point while I'm talking. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have stories that you're willing to share, I'm going to say a first name. People will see the first name at least on the screen. But if you have questions about how do you overcome that communication issue that deals with a management to employee relationship, how do you overcome with that? How do you deal with it? I'm going to talk a little bit about those solutions. So go ahead and feel free to comment away. I'd love to hear from you. So the issue at hand, you've got a management team, and it could be a sole owner, sole CEO, but you have a management team, an executive team, and you have mixed messaging. I still go that the buck stops at the top. Whoever that CEO is, whoever the boss is, whoever the jefe is, that's the person. He or she is in charge of setting the tone. And there's got to be a certain level of monitoring. So whatever that language is supposed to be, whatever the desire for the employee group or that individual employee is, it needs to be clear from the very top person all the way down through the person who is directly managing that individual. I saw a situation recently that just wasn't happening. There were 2 messages being given out, and a person left, a valuable person of that team left, because they were not clear on what they wanted. They wanted to do one thing. One person liked that. The other person said, no, it's not what I want. It just didn't come through well, and that person, a valuable team member, left. So from the very top, CEO level, president level, owner level, moving on down to where that employee is, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 different slots, the definition, the clarity on what that expectations are and the language revolving around that is vitally important. Number 2, you better be putting things in writing. You know, even in our technological age, if it's not in writing, it didn't exist. It's easier than ever with technology to have redundancy and things in writing, and it's more important than ever. You know, my wife Barb, who I mentioned earlier, she's in the human resources world, and she and I talk about human resource type things because I run in with my clients sometimes into human resource type issues, and the communication is critical, but so is the documentation. You better have it documented. In many cases, you might want to have your employees sign off that they absolutely understand what you're talking about. So it's highly important that you go from a situation where you are influencing with the language and the behavior you give, but you're also talking about documenting it and putting it in writing. So for those viewers out there, what questions do you have? What topics of conversation do you want to bring up here? I would love to chat with you. I'd like to have the interaction. That's one of the beauties of doing this thing live. So please feel free. There's a question box off to the side there. Feel free to write in. What questions do you have, whether you're coming from an employee standpoint or the employer or management standpoint? What are some of the questions that you have regarding how you can improve this? One of the ways, I'll just jump the gun as I wait to see if there are any questions pop up. One of the ways you can improve is by improving your vocabulary. The broader a vocabulary that you have, the more effective you're going to be at really getting your message through. You know, you gotta give people more credit that they're smarter than you think they might be. Good language, really good language, and a broad vocabulary is going to be your friend as an executive, as somebody who's trying to become inspirational, motivational, and most of all, influential. So the better that you are at your vocabulary, the better you're going to be. The second thing that I think is highly important is training. You can't be brilliant by yourself. I'm a big believer in that. That's why coaching and mentoring is so vitally important, but so is training. There's great opportunities out there all over the place, regardless of where you live, to go to training programs that will help managers, supervisors, owners to be able to understand how they can be better at their communications, both from a written standpoint and from an oral standpoint, how they can be better at that, how they can improve how they document things. I know that there are courses and there's professional development opportunities out there for people. That's something else you should be doing. So number one is increase your vocabulary. Number two is get training. And then number three is practice. You can find colleagues. If you can find coaches or mentors, people you can role play situations with, that's really, really powerful. I know a lot of mastermind groups will do that. So if you have a group of peers and colleagues, especially if they are not necessarily competitors, and you're able to have those types of deep conversations and role play situations, that's really good. As I wait and see if I have any questions on this pop up, again, thank you for those of you joining us live. I'm going to deviate just for a second while I have a few minutes here and bring up a topic that just kind of popped into my head today. I want to share it with you, so you're getting this just off the cuff a little bit. I don't know if any of you else out there are watching the World Cup. I'm not a soccer guy. I never have claimed to be one, and I would never do that. I'm more, from an American standpoint, a traditional football, baseball, basketball follower. But I have been intrigued by the World Cup. My youngest daughter really likes it, and so we've been watching the games together, and I've gotten caught up on the fervor of the national pride and the stakes. It's all great. I was watching the game yesterday, USA playing Portugal, and the United States had a 2-1 lead with just seconds remaining. Portugal made a play and tied the game at the very end with literally seconds to go. And you know, it just kind of made me think as I sat there and I watched that. I kind of get over the part where I was disappointed that we didn't get the win, and you go through that from a fan perspective. But as I sat back and looked at soccer as a metaphor, it was interesting because unlike any other sport, even though there's a clock up there, you never know. You never know when time runs out. You just have to keep playing till the very end. In other sports, specifically football and basketball, I mean, you have that clock counting down. And we're all smart enough to know when it hits 0, game over. And in soccer, it's counting upwards. And the guy on the field is keeping the time, so you don't know when it ends. So really, you have to keep playing hard until you literally hear those 2 whistles blow in unison. That's what Portugal did, and quite frankly, that's what we as the United States didn't really do. We didn't get back in time, and we didn't finish strong and finish that play until the very end. Portugal did, and they managed to get the tie. Here's what that means for you, and maybe this is next week's extra points topic that I'm getting out of the way early with you. We never know in life when time is up. That goes for our life. That goes for client relationships. That goes for prospective client relationships. We never know. There's no clock going backwards down to zero to tell us this is how much time we have left in the game. Very similar to soccer. We think we might know. We have kind of planned that we might know when it's going to end, but we got to keep playing till the very end. So I would encourage each one of you. I see something popping up here. I'll get to that in just a second. I encourage each of you to kind of have that mentality. To have that mentality that this clock is running, but we don't know when the end is. And so whether we look at it from a personal standpoint with our own lives, or we look at it from a professional standpoint, it's a great reminder to be in the moment and to keep working hard and pressing hard until the clock literally, it game's over. So Dave wrote to me, and this is, I think, going back to my initial comments. Employees often have trust issues with leadership. Leadership doesn't walk their talk. What are your thoughts about this? Well, thanks, Dave. You know what? When it comes to trust in leadership, that may be the biggest area that I have seen, and I see it in both small and larger companies, where there is a general lack in trust in leadership. I mean, heck, you can even take a look at it from a macro standpoint from our own country and how we look at our own government. That happens all the time. So the trust issues come from lack of leadership because the leaders don't walk their talk. They may say, hey, this is my culture, or this is the culture of the organization, but they're acting and behaving differently. Number one, the base foundation of any influential communications is trust. Now, I think those employees, when they first come in and are hired in, they are at the highest level of trust you think that they might ever be at. They're ready to go in and believe everything and be ready to drink the Kool-Aid, so to speak. But if you as a leader don't continue to build on that foundational level from where that trust was when the person comes in and it starts going the other way, that's when you start having some communication issues, because you might say something as a leader and really feel like you mean it, but if your employee says, I've heard that before, I've heard them say this, and they've never carried through with that, that's a problem. Dave, you bring up a really great point. In the end, whether it's being married, you know, I've mentioned Barb and I being married 28 years, there's got to be trust there. There's got to be that's the foundation of the whole deal. When you're parenting kids, even at the kid level, I can speak that because I had parents at one time. I still do, but you know what I mean. The kids have to trust that the parents have their best interest at heart and that they act in a manner that matches their words. So whether it's a marriage, whether it's parenthood, whether it is a CEO or the president of a small to large organization or even a Fortune 500, if the leadership isn't walking the talk, there is a decreasing amount of trust in that trust bank, and no matter what the words coming out are, it's not going to work. So it's whether it's mixed messaging through two people saying different things, or mixed messaging in that the message doesn't match how you walk the talk. I think you put that really well, Dave. There's going to be issues. Thank you for bringing that up. We are about 18, 19 minutes into this. We have up to probably another 10 minutes. I know we've got some other viewers out there. If you would like to pipe in and give us your thoughts, comments, or questions, this is probably going to be last call to do that. Feel free to do that. Dave, thank you for yours. So I'm going to wrap up a little bit, just because I want to kind of put these two all together in one bow. I know they seem a little diverse, but let's go ahead and try that. The first part of today's conversation was really centered around influential communications to improve your productivity, to improve your employee morale, to increase or improve the level of lack of turnover, and to really have a place where people enjoy working and stick around and become ambassadors for your business. You do that by, from a foundational level, as Dave points out, doing what you say you're going to do. Being vulnerable when you have to. If you make a mistake, admit it. I think that goes a long way too to a point that Dave brought out. If you make mistakes, and we all make mistakes, even us leaders at leadership positions make mistakes. Acknowledging that mistake and working to try to improve it goes a long way to building that trust. Once you've got the trust in place, you keep it, but you also make sure that everybody at the higher levels understand what the direction is, what the culture is, what the language is, what the expectations are, and then that's carried throughout the ranks. And then finally, don't mix your employees up. Give them a job description. Tell them what their roles are and what your expectations are, and be consistent, and make sure it's consistent with what your employees want. The more you do that, the better your business is going to be, and quite frankly, the happier your life is going to be, because it's going to be easier for you. So if you're a leader, that's what you have to do. If you're an employee, make sure that you have that open dialogue, because if things aren't going well on your end, but you value the job and you value what you're doing, it makes sense to reach out and talk to your boss about that. And then the final one, I was just talking a little World Cup. I guess it's a timeliness issue. I'm in the moment. I can't believe I wrote on Facebook today, I think, that I can't believe I'm actually talking about soccer. But I've got caught up in it. I'm a competitor, and I love watching Team USA play and seeing how hard they work, and they've come a long way. But it really kind of, as a novice soccer fan, I really noticed the difference from a timing of when game ends and when game doesn't, from the fact that the players and the coaches on the field, the competitors, really never quite know when time is up. So being in the moment, staying ready, and being focused from very beginning to very end is really critical for them. Well, it's critical for us too. Whether we are dealing from a personal and professional standpoint, we never know when time's up. And for all of us, I hope it's quite a ways down the line, but you never know. And just to kind of end that, I found out earlier this month that a high school classmate of mine died tragically, 49 years old, in a motorcycle accident. And I'm still, I guess, at an age where I think sometimes I'm invincible, except for my Achilles heel. But sometimes you think you're invincible and you're going to live until you're 85, 90 years old. But the reality is time on earth here is fragile, and there's a lot of things that can happen. And so we really need to focus on, we don't know when that whistle is going to blow, but we got to play hard and be in the moment until then. So with that, last call. This is it. This is the last call. Dave, again, thank you for joining in. Anybody else out there who wants to do so, now is your time. This entire broadcast will be available almost immediately on YouTube. I do make a couple quick enhancements, mostly with the lighting to it, but you can go on and watch it right away. A reminder, I will not be on next week. I'll be traveling somewhere across this great country, so keep an eye out on Weedin360.com, which is my blog, my Twitter account @Dan Weedin. I'll probably be posting some pictures along the way, and I bet you I come up with a few stories out of this as well that will hopefully add some value to you. So with that, won't be here next week. We'll be back in 2 weeks, 12 o'clock Pacific time on Monday. Looks like we're all done with questions. I want to thank all of you who came live. I appreciate that. Thanking all of you who are watching. I'm looking forward to my cross-country trip next week, and even more to chatting with you again in 2 weeks on the next Weedin Unleashed Live. For now, have a great day. Ciao.